Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are so grateful for our friends here at the Capitol in central Pennsylvania as we have some of the greatest work ahead of us and a lot of great milestones behind us as it relates to sickle cell disease. It's exciting, if I could even say that it's also heartbreaking of the strides we've made and the ones we could have made. It becomes two opposites that must merge together. And I think it can happen as we kick off from September, which is National Sickle Cell Month of 2024, on to September, National Sickle Cell Month of 2025. I think of the people over the last 20 to 30 years who have championed on behalf of sickle cell disease that didn't have it. And they've spent much of their lives challenging others, volunteering and giving the best of themselves in positions like many of you hold. And then those who've championed in silence as a parent or a grandparent, or even the very patient themselves who has to deal with the challenges of life that already approach us all. Being a mother or a father is already its own challenge. But we found with something like sickle cell disease, that is the number one blood hereditary disease in much of our world. See, it's not just the United States, but it's one of the areas where we in the United States are very weak at educating our population. We're weak at educating our leaders, our people in great positions, our executives across the area. We're very weak as a nation in ensuring that the proper education is out there. So as I think of this, I've had the great privilege of going to many continents and many countries, and it's interesting to me of the basic knowledge of the average resident in these places know more about sickle cell than many of us who are not just Black, but maybe it's in our family, or maybe we even have the trait. And so my excitement today has more to do with the possibilities because of the partnerships. And you're gonna hear from some of these partners and collaborators that make a difference. We're gonna also hear today from those collaborators who are in key positions to be a difference because they already have been that. You're gonna hear from some of our patients, families, and you're gonna hear exactly the kind of things that they must endure. You see, we all endure a challenge related to economics when we have our own diagnoses related to anything from cancer to kidney disease and things like that. But when you put sickle cell in the middle of it for a family, that one thing not just can in many cases split it, it can also hold everything back for the sake of one. So I want you to experience that today as we move forward. And I want to just share some data with you real quick, because we know that there's three kinds of lies, right? They say lies, then you have the darned lies, and then you have statistics. So I don't want to wear you out with statistics, because of course they can be used in a way that can unfortunately be used to manipulate anyone. I don't want to do that. But what I do want you to do is be aware of how it affects you. When you think of sickle cell disease, everyone here, if there's one common element that I asked you what you thought about, you would say, well, it's that thing that affects Black people. Correct? Yes or no? Yes. But if the data was shared in our schools, whether you have a 5th grade education or a post-grad education, you were usually taught about most diseases that can affect the family in a harsh way, such as hemophilia, Down syndrome, and other things. You're taught how to play with those children, how to teach them. You're taught everything about them. But when I share these data with you, it's gonna puzzle you why we haven't taught about sickle cell. I'll never forget in Mifflin County playing on the school ground of Buchanan Elementary, one of only 3 Black families in that town. 1st grade, we're told at recess, before we go out to recess, remember when we play with Bruce, have fun, No pushing, no shoving. He's got a disorder that affects him and that could have him in the hospital tonight. I was taught that as a kid. By third grade, at BC Graham in Tampa, Florida, I was taught you just never, ever, you make fun of someone who looks and is different. We were taught how to play with and befriend another child with Down syndrome. It was a part of the education. I also was taught in health class, like many of you. Isn't it interesting? We didn't have the data before, but we have it now. 1 in 333 white children born have sickle cell trait. But you wouldn't know it because of the stigma that came along with this, just a little more than a century-old diagnosis. And that 1 in 100 Latinos have sickle cell trait. And 1 in 13 African Americans. We can see why we better start from the top down, and that's why I'm here to be here in front of you all at the Capitol, because it'll start a lot with our leaders here in legislation, our senators and future senators, right? And as I say that to you, I want you to know that we can be a difference and we can gain a whole lot of ground if we're not just making paper decisions. Looks good on paper, yeah, let's do this, let's do that. We don't think about the people involved or the families or the pioneers who are working in their positions to make a difference. We're just thinking about, okay, we have this kind of a budget, let's make this decision with the money, let's do that. Oh, let's show up because something great has happened. No, we can actually apply ourselves, as my dad would say, with elbow grease. So as we kick off today, I got just a couple more minutes, good. You're gonna hear, and my hope is that you could see why we've got to do something. But before I start bringing up some of our guests or some of our collaborators, I want to share this with you. For the first time in history, our nation, as it thinks about growing a population in any city or township or anything else, it doesn't think of it as a family. It thinks of when two people get together and they hang out. Somebody might get pregnant. It's not about the family anymore. It's about just, hey, people coming together. And when people come together, one of them may have ancestry from, let's say, the Netherlands. Another one may have ancestry from West Indies or north of the United States or in the South. But what we're not doing anymore is we're not separating people because of their colors thank God that we've gotten rid of those challenges of the civil rights movement, but with that came greater responsibility. Here, when it's not a problem, when two people of two different backgrounds and colors and cultures come together, we're so interested in that's who they choose and that's their preference that we forgot about the responsibility of what would it mean. We certainly wouldn't tell them if you've got the gene most likely to cause Down syndrome, right? You'll be tested. You have that exam done to make sure you don't have it. But we're not thinking about the power that we get when we find out, do I possess the trait? No stigma at all with it. I have the trait, right? Found out really early in life. But do you have it? We don't know our status. So as I wind down these last 2 minutes, think about this. Pennsylvania was one of the leading states in the nation to ensure that there would be testing at birth for everybody in central Pennsylvania for at least 3 decades. Where we failed is the rule was made, legislation did their part, but the rest of us didn't do ours. Because if you interview anybody that's 20 years old, 30, or even 10, you ask them or their parents if they have sickle cell trait, and 90% of the time they're gonna say, I don't know. We're testing. We didn't create the mechanisms to follow up correctly so we could teach our teachers, so we can teach our providers, our educators that now have businesses. They work for major corporations. So when someone's missing a lot of work, we think that they're lazy. When they can't move as fast as the other people, we treat them as if they're lazy because we know nothing about the disease and they look healthy. Nothing worse than when a sickle cell patient goes to the emergency room and they have more muscles than the doctors that are taking care of them. And they have a better complexion and look really good. The first thing that comes to the mind of a provider, if they're not educated, is this person is drug seeking. That's not the problem. That's the symptom of a greater problem. The greater problem is we didn't take care of educating our providers on the front line. We didn't take care of it with our educators, our employers, and our college educators. We didn't tell anyone about this. Instead, we hide from it because of the Black stigma. Let's start today in making those kind of changes so that doesn't have to be our future. I think about the new responsibilities that you'll have in the future, Honorable Patty Kim. I think about the role that you have now, but it's going to become greater in the Senate. And no one's talking about this kind of thing because there's too many things that can get you a lot more votes and a lot more attention than this. But I can say proudly that one of the things I've loved about your presence in Central PA, you were there with or without the credibility, with or without someone standing up, in awe over you. I don't think since I've been back in Pennsylvania, I don't think I've ever been to anything where you didn't show up. I mean, geez, but that's a good thing. So I'm gonna look here, and I'm gonna start off by inviting up one of our partners, and I think it's important to note, because we're not educated, we don't know that all blood isn't the same. We've been proud partners with the Red Cross, and they've done a great job at ensuring that we can have enough blood supplies because of the shortages that happened in 2020, but even before that. We have a great shortage of quality African-American blood, and the difference that makes, you'll be able to find out more about it. But let me tell you something. The red blood cell of a sickle cell patient doesn't live as long as yours. The average person's red blood cell will live 120 days. If a patient has sickle cell, maybe 40. Maybe it lasts longer if they get blood with a typing that's closer to theirs, like from an African-American donating blood. It may be able to live up to 60 or 70. But we don't know that because people just say, just give blood. There's more to it. We should commit to giving it for sure, but we should be showing up as African-Americans. We should be showing up at the front door when possible, because one day it's your child in a car accident. You don't know that the difference it all makes. That's why I'm proud to invite up to the front of the room a good friend and certainly an amazing partner, Laura Burke, who represents the Red Cross. You've done such a great job at helping us to fill the rooms and collect blood every single quarter for years. God bless you. Thank you. Coming up, I want you all to hear from Laura Burke.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Dwayne Golden and the South Central Pennsylvania Sickle Cell Council for bringing us together today. As he mentioned, I'm Laura Burke, the Executive Director of the Central Pennsylvania chapter of the American Red Cross. I'm honored to share with you the important work that the Red Cross is doing to help improve the lives of those affected by sickle cell disease. As the most common genetic blood disorder in the United States, we know that patients with sickle cell disease endure extreme pain, tissue and organ damage, anemia, and even strokes. Blood transfusions are essential in managing the very real pain and long-term health of those with sickle cell disease. Many patients require frequent transfusions throughout their lifetime, as many as 100 units of blood per year. Unfortunately, these transfusions can make finding compatible blood types more difficult. Some patients may develop an immune response against blood from donors which are not closely matched. This is where the Red Cross plays a vital role. We are committed to maintaining a diverse blood supply to ensure the right blood product is available at the right time. To accomplish this, the American Red Cross launched the Sickle Cell Initiative in 2021 to grow the number of blood donors who are Black to help patients with sickle cell disease and improve health outcomes. Blood type, just like eye color, is an inherited trait. For patients with sickle cell disease, blood donors who are Black are almost 3 times more likely to be a match, compared with donors who are not Black or African American. Since the start of the initiative, more than 108,000 first-time African American blood donors have generously rolled up their sleeve to help strengthen and diversify the blood supply. We are proud to build on this momentum with our partners in the Black community to build trust, raise awareness, and engage new blood donors to help save lives. Additionally, as part of the initiative, the Red Cross has provided more than 224,000 sickle cell trait screenings to donors who identify as African American, Black, or multiracial. According to a recent donor survey, more than 40% of first-time donors who screened positive for the sickle cell trait were unaware of their status. We recognize the importance of providing this valuable health insight to people through the blood donation process. The need for blood is constant. Blood and platelet donations are critical for patients with sickle cell disease, undergoing gene therapies, stem cell transplants, or regular transfusions to alleviate pain. If you are able, I encourage you to make an appointment today to donate. You can do so by visiting redcrossblood.org, downloading the free Red Cross Blood Donor app, or by calling 1-800-RED-CROSS. Together, we can truly make a difference in the lives of those with sickle cell disease. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. You see, that's only one partner. And we're digging our heels in. After having long talks with our president of our board, Glenn Williams, we made it a point, no matter how small we are, we're gonna lock arms with every single entity and individual that wants to participate in being the difference. Me personally, because I've been around a long enough time, I'm old enough, I know that it doesn't take many. Pennsylvania can lead the nation in how it addresses sickle cell disease because of these type of partnerships. Couldn't do it alone, of course. So that opens the door for our next key partner that I want to invite up to here, because as I told you earlier, she's everywhere. If something's going on, she's there. Our own personal representative, Patty Kim, who has literally placed herself in the midst of anything where there's progress is needed to show up with her attention, but show up in action. We'd be remiss of having this without her. I'd love to invite you up, Patty. Thank you so much for being here and for your years of commitment.
Thank you, Dwayne, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I really want to commend the coalition for their work. I know the exposure that I got precedes Mr. Williams and Mr. Golden, but just the patience that, let's say, Mr. Joe Robinson gave me, just to sit down and talk to me, to invite me to the bowling fundraisers, and getting to meet Mr. Ronald Johnson and meeting especially the kids where I can remember their faces. So as you can tell, I'm not buff, I'm not a fighter in this building, but what I like to do when sickle cell is important to me is when things pass by, what about us? What about us? Medical marijuana came out, we got to pick all the diseases, what about us? Sickle cell was on that list. The rare disease line item, what about us? Is what I think my job is here in this Capitol. There's a lot of guys bigger than me, but I got a voice, and I'm gonna use it for our sickle cell community. So again, thank you for taking the time to educate me and to see why this is important. I'm gonna make sure that I'm going to recommit myself here before you, that in the new session, and hopefully in a new position, I will keep that microphone close to my mouth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You know, I was just thinking while you were talking, when I was growing up, political figures were so far out front. They're like, you could never be in the same room, let alone have a conversation. And one of the things I love is that I was telling Representative Kim that when she first moved on down, when she first started running for office in the mid 2000s or early 2000s, I don't remember what it was, she knocked on our door. I was a young married guy, right? Young husband with 3 children, my wife. And I'll never forget, she didn't just say vote for me. She literally said, here's some things I stand for. I think it affects your family. I'll never forget it. And so I was so surprised when I relocated back to the area in 2020, and there you were at the first event I went to. So it's great to know that in the 21st century, we could sit in the same cafes with our local political figures, no matter how high they are, and they are open to it. So God bless you for that. We have one of our collaborating partners that it's essential that we include them. I'm going to call them up, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to call one patient up, one of our patient family representatives up. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about the impact of this, this partner. You know, many don't talk about it because we've been through a lot of transition in central Pennsylvania over the last 30 years. In the old days, there was the Polyclinic Medical Center that's uptown. There's the Harrisburg downtown. There's Site Memorial across the river. There is the osteopathic out Londonderry Road. There's all these different separate places. And along comes the decade of mergers and acquisition. That affects a lot of things, whether we know it or not. It affects what happens at the ground level with things like sickle cell. So the first step to that was a few large conglomerates came in, Geisinger, Pinnacle, many others. They've come through. And we've seen in the last decade, billions of dollars were spent by one company to try and create some continuity in healthcare. We're blessed to have them. So I'm going to call them up following, but we have representatives here from UPMC. And the reason that's important is it affects whatever's happening with our grandchildren, our own children, their care during a crisis or a challenge, before and after. So their partnership is just as important as the Red Cross, Patty Kim and others. But how will you know that? Well, let's talk about it. I have coming up Nyla Jackson, who is a local entrepreneur who does cosmetology and yet also so many other things. We unfortunately lost her brother in the last 60 days, last 90 days. Last 90 days, 37-year-old man who had to deal with sickle cell his whole life, but it didn't just affect him, it affected his entire family. His mother, his aunts, his sisters, his brothers. Everybody was affected all the way through. And the world didn't get to miss the true gem that he was because of powerful sisters and aunts and uncles and those in his family. He was amazing, the kind of things that he's done. But Nyla can let you know why you all must work with us to be a difference because of how it affected her family. Nyla, would you come up and talk to us, dear? Nyla Jackson.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, guests and cherished supporters. My name is Nyla Jackson. I want to first thank everyone that came out in support of this mission to advocate, teach, and combat sickle cell disease. Today, I stand before you as a loving sister and caregiver, mourning the loss of my resilient brother, Kyle L. Jackson, who fought the challenges of sickle cell disease, SS. Telling Kyle's story, although Kyle endured the pain and complications caused by the sickle cell disease, his resilience to make a positive difference in the lives of his family and friends enlightened us. His laughter and knowledge kept all of us focused on the mission to comfort him. Kyle will get monthly blood infusions, bracing himself for the pain he would endure while a needle pierced his keloided skin to access his port. There were many times Kyle would be afraid to go to sleep due to scare of being awakened by a painful crisis. The last 3 months we shared with Kyle in the hospital were for us exhausting. Despite the challenges of pain, discomfort, and hope, we continued to support the efforts, often tag teaming with family to be by his side day and night. Kyle would yell, cry, question why him, and share some of the most difficult moments he faced. We saw him fight the pain, the embarrassment of needing someone to help him with the simplest of tasks, like holding a cup or a spoon, turning him from side to side, walking to and from the bathroom, and sitting up on the edge of the bed, just to name a few. Kyle often pleaded with hospital staff to help cure him as his body began to fail. But his mind kept him strong, wanting to go outside to feel the freshness of the air and have the sun on his face or against staff. But with Kyle's resilience, he finally convinced staff to give him 10 minutes for the simplest of pleasures. Day after day, we stood bedside trying to comfort him with pillows surrounding his body to help ease the pain with being touched. His eyes and his strength would keep us focused on the mission to comfort and be hopeful that he would defeat sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disease is a crippling and debilitating disease. Kyle often used humor to deflect from the pain as a divergent. He made it a battle of the mind over matter. He fought the battle as a sickle cell warrior. He never made it back home. Today, we honor Kyle's memory by advocating for those who continue to fight this battle. We gather to push for change that can bring hope and healing to the countless individuals like Kyle that live with this disease daily. The mission at the Coalition is to provide education, crucial research initiatives, resources, and vital support and assistance to patients and their families dealing with these crises. Together, we can make a difference. Please help us to keep the crises from happening by supporting the Sickle Cell Coalition. And I thank you all.
Nyla is one of many representatives of different families of amazing contributors in central Pennsylvania that we've lost due to sickle cell disease. And because of the things I discussed earlier of where we're falling short in educating, you wouldn't know that it doesn't have to happen that way. It doesn't. There are things we can do by decisions we make who are in positions that don't have sickle cell. There are things that we can do that improve the quality of life and extend it. Our very own current vice president of the board is already in her 70s and has sickle cell disease. Yes, it's a battle, but the life expectancy does not have to be cut short. It happens when we get so caught up in all of the priorities that aren't really priorities, and we forget about these. So one of my challenges for you, my dear sister, because of the respect that I have for you, is that we've made some decisions in a crisis during COVID that affected sickle cell. Of the funds that were earmarked for sickle cell disease in the state of Pennsylvania, some went to a company in Ohio and some went to the west coast of Pittsburgh. And we battle hard here in central Pennsylvania. And our next guest that's coming up spent billions of dollars attempting to make a difference in all diseases, but specifically have an appetite to launch a comprehensive sickle cell center in it. Things can be done, but we have to make noise. They can hear it. And together, through that collaboration, we can have an outcome that's desirable and not wait for somebody to be elected as president to make that difference. We have the power in our hands. So with that, Teresa Sellers, who wears many hats at UPMC, with her years of experience in health directly on the front line, managing the different operations as patients with sickle cell and other diseases are cared for. She does an amazing job and manages those in phlebotomy, nursing, and other things related to the care and the follow-up as it relates to testing. I would love for you to come up, Teresa. I look forward to hearing from you. And by the way, Teresa is one of many people that UPMC has spent their money to make sure we can have a difference in Pennsylvania, but we need the rest of you too. Come on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Teresa Sellers, Director of Community Health Initiatives for UPMC in Central PA. So we are involved in community health, and sickle cell being one of those diagnoses that we are trying our best to help manage and improve quality of life. So raising awareness about sickle cell disease is crucial. Early detection, we have worked together with the Sickle Cell Council for many years on testing, getting people engaged with primary care, trying to close the circle on their medical care, all with the goal of improving their quality of life. In being partnered with UPMC. We do have access now to specialists and individuals that are very interested in bringing to Central PA a sickle cell specific clinic. Our intention is to hold that at the Polyclinic campus, at the Klein Health Center, so we can tap into them. And I do hear what you're saying about the education. It is vital. At the hospitals, which I still work weekends and trying to help out, there are new staff all the time, and they don't truly understand the diagnosis and the effects on the families and the patient. So we are trying to help with the emergency departments and the inpatient care when a person with sickle cell is in that position. So we thank you for your partnership. We look forward to what we can do together here in Central PA, and we hope for the best. Thank you.
You know, Teresa, I have a fun fact for you. Before there was UPMC in Central PA, there was Pinnacle, and I worked there for 8 years. And they had a lot of initiatives. And you guys are doing with sickle cell what we did with lead paint and lead poisoning. They had a huge initiative all across the county. I was in Lancaster County. I was in just throughout many different counties, ensuring we had a team of people going, knocking on doors and telling people about the lead paint, which is important. But the idea of having a comprehensive sickle cell center, it's so important. There's only a few around the country. It's a huge commitment. They've already spent billions of dollars in Central PA. Now, I know we've been taught that if it's a large company, that they're the enemy. Those kind of myths are what help us to, of course, elect the wrong people. They can be, just like any of us can be the enemy, but they are not. They've put their investments, their people, and their time where, of course, they say it is. And so I'm proud for this partnership, my dear. And hello to Ms. Tina Nixon, one of UPMC's executives that's here. Thank you so much for being here as well. That being said, I think it's vital that we hear from one of our ambassadors who is on our board for a number of years. He's been a huge champion for sickle cell disease and has the disease. You won't keep him quiet. Don't try. Don't even think about it. He is my brother. We're born the same year, and what a loving person. And he's not going to throw sickle cell at you. He's going to be himself. And yes, he happens to have it, but you won't keep him quiet. Ronald Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, hear from Ronald. What a champion. Thank you for your years of service for the Sickle Cell Council.
Good morning. Nala Jackson, you made my little brief comments easier for me. I'm standing here representing the sickle cell population of South Central Pennsylvania. It's been such a profound effect that has taken place from April with Master Justin Johnson, and then followed up by your brother, and it seems like the sickle cell population gets lost when a warrior loses the battle. And so I'm here today to represent all of the South Central Pennsylvania sickle cell population to say thank you. And although there has been a lot of great things taking place in the sickle cell community, we still have so much work to do because we still are losing warriors. And until then, unfortunately, like Dwayne said, I'm up in the 60s and I'm getting a little bit slower and weaker. But anytime that I can be a voice and be of service and just lay everything out on the table, please feel free to call on me.
Ronald's a bit modest, but a lot of the grounds that we've seen happen over the last decade happened with him on the front lines along with us. And he's fought when others couldn't and came out when others wouldn't. And so I appreciate that, Ronald. Our next guest that I want you to hear from another patient family, because I think you need to associate what's on paper with actual people. And you wouldn't know because it's some of the quiet things. We hear about stabbings and all the things that occur in our cities, and that's important. We don't get to hear much about what goes on in the lives of people when we lose and there's other tragedies in injuries and things that really affect the sickle cell population. So I want you to hear that. I met a young lady at a meeting maybe a year ago who is a vegan chef, had no idea that they had any connection to sickle cell disease. And you just have to hear from her. Her name is Marilyn Jackson. She is a champion for sickle cell disease, a grandmother of a sickle cell patient, and at the same time fights every day for the mere things that many of us may take for granted for that child. What's it about? Let's hear from her. Marilyn, come up, please.
Good morning, everyone. If I can please borrow about 5 minutes of your time, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, first and foremost. So I wanted to basically give a short testament of what our family has experienced. As you said, I am a vegan chef, which was initially inspired about 7 years ago to help with my health conditions. As a grandmother of 3 children now, 2 boys and 1 girl, and a mother of 2 boys and 1 girl. My daughter is the one that has the child with sickle cell. We got the call 3 weeks after his newborn screening and found out that he indeed was diagnosed with sickle cell. Devastating, of course. Tears were shed, not knowing really what to do. They basically gave us a brochure and said, you know, there's plenty of support here. And we kind of went on our way, come to this doctor's appointment, and that was pretty much it. So as a grandmother and an intuitive person that I am, started doing research, trying to figure out, you know, how we can combat this situation. What can we do as a family to come together and help him? Because you could tell it affected him by the way he behaved. He cried a little bit more. So that brings us to about 5 months. He was with his father, his biological father, and we got a disturbing call that he was unresponsive. My daughter was 40 minutes away at work. She calls me and says, "Mom, he's not responding. His eyes are rolling. He's just, you know, can you get there?" And we get there, and he's blue. His body is lifeless, and not knowing what happened, I call 911, and 911 instructs me to perform CPR on my 5-month-old grandson. Devastating. Ambulance got there, they got him to the hospital, and he coded 4 times in the hospital. We had to stand behind glass doors and watch him be brought back to life 4 times. And it was the hardest thing that I've ever had to incur in life. Just, you can't imagine, you just can't imagine. And we spent 3 months in the hospital, finding out that he was allegedly shaken, which caused bleeding in his brain, in the back of his eyes. He had brain damage, he had kidney failure, liver, everything shut down. He had so many tubes and everything hooked up to him. It was just horrific. 3 months in a hospital is not a place, it's just too long to be in a hospital. So with that, thank God Almighty, he recovered enough to come home. The hardest part that he suffers from with that is kidney failure. So he has to have dialysis every single night until they find a kidney donor. He's 2.5 years old. Every night he has to be placed on dialysis. He has a feeding tube. He has a nurse that comes to the house every day. He has 2 physical therapists that come to help him try to talk, to help him try to eat by mouth. He's still not walking, so they work with him on that. What I've noticed with the disease, along with what has happened to him, is it's obviously caused more issues because of the blood. He gets blood transfusions literally every 90 days. We are at the hospital with blood transfusions. And I'm so thankful that I got in touch with Dwayne in the office. We weren't really aware about them for a while because of just everything that was going on, all the specialists, the hospitals, everything. And to just try to get some support because it's overwhelming. You know, my daughter is 26 years old and she has to give my grandson meds and take care of him and put him on dialysis every night. That's no life for a 26-year-old. And as a grandmother, to watch is hard. It's very hard. We're trying to find resources to figure out how we can, you know, dispose of his fluids. It's a bunch of bags and you know, from the dialysis and the trash gets overloaded and you have trash bills and it's just like, okay, what are we doing with all of this? You know, so that we're trying to look for support for that. My daughter has lost housing because he has to be in a separate room because of the sterilization with the dialysis. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. Again, like I said, it's horrific. But I'm very resilient. I'm a very resilient woman. I'm a praying woman. And I thoroughly believe that everything happens for a reason. My grandson is very strong to be the young age that he is. And he fights every single day. He fights every single day. He gives me hope. He gives me strength. But this is something that I do believe it doesn't get enough attention. It really doesn't. Because when you even speak of it in a hospital setting or a doctor setting, they really don't have much to say. You know, take medicine, do this, do that. There's nothing addressed with your diet, which I believe has a lot to do with it as well. It can help. It may not cure it, but it can help. So I think that if we could, again, as Dwayne said, I thoroughly believe in educating because my daughter, she knew she had the trait. I have the trait. I got the trait from my mother, but the father didn't know he had the trait. So we as a people, as mothers, fathers, we're going to take care of our children, our grandchildren that, you know, get diagnosed with any type of disease because we love them. That's what we're going to do. But if we can know their status, you know our status beforehand to prevent this, I really truly believe that will help a lot. It will make a big difference because you will be preventing a lot of people from suffering. You will help a lot of people's families from not having to lose a family member. It would help out a lot. So I really and truly appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to be here because this directly impacts my family. And we're not oblivious to know that it's going to help a lot of other people. And you don't really know the severity of these situations until it happens to you or someone in your family. And that's when it hits the hardest. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Marilyn. As we prepare, we have our closing remarks by the president of our board of directors. I have to share with you to note that no matter what you do for a living, what you do at home, if you're retired, there's something you can do. And I think that little something by a lot of us will go a long way. I was listening to Nyla, Ronald, and Marilyn, and I thought about so many of the patients across the country and across central Pennsylvania. We have to do something and not just talk. We know that one of the things that we need to be able to do if we're getting in the office is talk really good. We get to hold our representatives, our politicians responsible for what you're going to do about it other than talk good. And that's what we can do together. So note, if I mentioned that 1 in 333 white children born have sickle cell trait, you have to understand what that means when I tell you that 1 in 100 Latinos and 1 in 13 African Americans. There's enough cross-pollination that occurs. I have 7 grandchildren, of which 4 of them have sickle cell trait. One of my daughter-in-laws is from Puerto Rico. Another one is from Trinidad. Another one is a white American. But all of my children have at least a child that has sickle cell trait. We have to start being educated and being okay with it. Being okay with knowing that there's something beyond it. Now here's the catch. Everything that Nyla talked about regarding her brother and that you just heard Marilyn talk about and even Ronald. The little things that we do are what make a difference and help improve that quality of life and reduce the challenges. There's already challenging being a mother. It's already challenging being a father, a brother, or sister with losing housing because you have to give your child dialysis every night because there's no sterilized room. Inability to have recycling of the very body fluids that you're exchanging, so you have to leave that community because there's no center that will come and pick it up. There's many stories like that. So what can we do? Lock arms with us. You'll be hearing from us throughout the year. Sometimes to come to things like this. Sometimes whatever you can give, do it, because our state so far, we're looking for them to make a change. Currently, the majority of the funds for sickle cell are going to another state and also going to Pittsburgh. I want you to at least listen up, help us when you can, and we can do this together. Now, I've saved the best. I saved the better part of what we are for last. Our president of the board of directors, who voluntarily took that position over a year ago, Mr. Glenn Williams, who was on the board as treasurer for years before that, he's committed. And one of the things that I love about him is he's committed enough to show up and do it even though it's not a job. Voluntarily does it. Glenn, come up and talk to us. Close us out so we can certainly head off for a great next year. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Thank you, sir.
Whew, wow. Wow, I just don't know what to say. I'm overwhelmed with the testimonies. Nyla and Marilyn, I feel for you and what your struggles are. They're real. And I'm here to close you out. I didn't think I was supposed to be here. I don't have sickle cell. My wife has a cousin who has sickle cell, and he left out of here at 34 years old. I met him the first time when he was 4 years old. My wife and I were engaged at the time, and he was at Children's Hospital in Delaware, and I saw him struggling for his life. And at 34, you know, his mom and his dad were, well, I mean, they were involved. They weren't married or anything. They didn't know. I mean, she knew that she had sickle cell, the mom, but, you know, it wasn't something that was talked about. It wasn't something that was considered. We need to do something. We need to think about, you know, when we connect, when we get together, that we are individuals that need to be aware. We need to be aware that this could impact even an accident. You know, it happens. It happens often in our community. The kids, as Dwayne had mentioned, they don't get this in sex education in the schools. And to me, that's insane that doesn't happen. And I've heard different stories as to why. You know, look, I'm rambling now because, you know, because it's on me to share. But we need to do more. We need to do more, and we do it with little resources. And we need more resources. I do want to thank our partners who have stood up for us. The Department of Health is there, has supported us. The Children's Sickle Cell Foundation of even Pittsburgh, we get funds from. I also need to mention Cool Vet, which is this gentleman right here, Wayne Codner, his family, neighbors of mine, the Cooley family. We were talking about sickle cell, and he said, I want to support you guys. And he did. And significantly, they supported us. And so he gets a mention. And he's here today. He wants to do more. He wants to be involved. They're vets, they're physicians, they're doctors, they know the community and the issues they're regarding. So thank you, Wayne, for your support and being here today. I want to also thank UPMC. I want to thank Penn State Health, Hamilton Health, Pfizer, Waterday Foundation. All of these have been financial supporters that keep us going, and we appreciate that. To our sickle cell warriors and their families, thank you for your continued press. And in particular, in the memories of Kyle Jackson and Justin Johnson, we need to mention that the systems, which I'm not surprised, but I'm encouraged by your testimonies, Marilyn, and by yours, Kyla, because I feel that the systems failed them to some extent. And I just need to bring that up. The systems failed them. We failed them as an organization. Because we want to do more. But nonetheless, we continue to move forward. For the Justin Johnson family, just for those of you who don't know, he's the teenager who was tragically lost his life at the expense of school students who claimed they were playing a game that ultimately caused Justin to go into cardiac arrest and was the end of his life. And we still have lingering questions about that, about the investigation, about the alleged racial slurs and the perceived bullying that occurred as a result of Justin Johnson's death. I just wanted to bring that up because we need to continue to press that issue. And I spoke to one of the state representatives who was here earlier, and I mentioned it to him, and he said to me, he said, Glenn, just so you know that the county investigation of this incident, that the chief investigator who was involved in that actually passed away, and that they still are moving forward with that investigation and what happened to Justin Johnson. So that's encouraging. That's encouraging. Our goal here is to keep advocating for those with sickle cell, keep educating and increasing the awareness, and to provide assistance whenever needed. I want to thank you all for being here this morning with us. Our next event, we have a blood drive coming up for those of you, just so you know, September the 27th. It's going to be at St. Paul Baptist Church. And we will also be at the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sororities Health Fair, which is in October the 12th. We have a keynote speaker lined up to speak at that event. Her name is Zakia Proctor Owens. I had to mention her maiden name because she's homegrown from Harrisburg. And we're glad that she's here, going to be with us. She's with Penn State Health. Please go to our website to get information about our upcoming events. Thank you. God bless you. Also, I want to thank my brother, Dwayne Golden, because he is such an inspiration behind this organization. He not only am I a volunteer, but he is also a volunteer. So I think I just want to recognize our staff, Natasha Burris, our program director, Cindy Clayton, our community health worker, are the two paid staff. We are also in the process of looking to fill the executive director's role, which has been vacant since October of 2022. It's been too long. We have individuals that we'll be interviewing over the next month. and we're looking forward to bringing that individual on. We don't necessarily know how we're going to pay for it, but God does. Take care. Thank you.